Hello, in this video I want to teach you how you can use properly data types and conversion method in lambda function. This is mandatory if you want to use LINQ in your UiPath robot. As an example, I'll use an Excel source, but the mechanism applies to any other data types. For more details of how to use LINQ, check out the playlist on the channel or my complete course to learn LINQ in the description below. Well, I'm gonna use a for each. So I'm gonna use a for each row, which is here for each row in data table. I'm gonna just put the payments, and here I have the current row. I'm gonna drop here an assign. So the current row, it is an row. In order to get the value, you say current row, open a parenthesis, and you have two options. You have the column name, you have the column index, and the column name as a string. And this is probably the option that you're using a lot. So that's a amount. Let's say I want to get the column amount. But have a look here. This one returns an object. Now, this method, it works, but I recommend to use this approach only for displaying. For instance, if I would like to display this in a string format, or if I want to get in a conjunction with a string format or display on the screen, it's definitely okay to have this approach. But you will not see me to have this approach when I'm using in the LINQ examples. The reason is because of the return type object. Object, it's not something which you can base. You cannot make a comparison. You cannot make a group by. Object is a dummy thing which you can put a lot of information inside, but you need to be specific. If you want to use a LINQ and you want to learn a LINQ, you need to use it properly. So actually the data row has another method which is called field. And field, it requests a data type and it accepts the column index, the column name, sorry, as a text, but is returning a T. T is really depending what data type you have there. So for instance, if I have a column which I'm storing double, I can write it like that. If I have in this amount, let's say I have a string, I'm gonna ask like that. Now there is a problem here because you will get an invalid cast exception. If the column type does not match from an Excel to this one, you will have an error. But don't get scared, it's perfectly normal to have that error. So you're gonna see me to use this approach, the method using field, because it is the fastest and it is typed. Now there is also another approach which I don't use, but it does exactly the same. So if you still like to use the column name with this, you need to convert to the specific type that you want to use. For instance, you can use the convert to. So let's say I'm having in this amount, I don't know if I have a string, but I want to convert to a double. So I'm going to use the convert to double, and this one accepts as a parameter. It has 18 overloads that accepts here from the return row. And the value which is returned by here, it's equivalent with the one returning from field. But there is a catch. This one, it is less performant, and the chances to get an invalid cast exception with this approach are less. And you may say, okay, because I don't have too many errors, then I could use this approach. Yes, but that can be also a trap. Don't get scared when you have exception, it's perfectly normal. It means that your code does not conform with the specification of the document. So let me show you what I mean by that. If I'm gonna open the payments file, you know that in Excel, you can specify here the data type, the number format. You can specify general, currency, time, fraction, and text. Well, this is actually the data type that is stored inside the cell. We're gonna specify here per column, but basically we are matching this format for all the rows in that column. You can also specify individually by this. And as you can see, this column, it is a date, which means I can get the field and get directly the date type, because this one, it is stored as a date. This one is stored as a general. Now there can be a number or not. If you want to be 100% sure, you can specify here a number. And with the compound number, we have the same case, actually with the other columns. So what is the takeaway from here? Well, let's say I want to get the minimum from the column amount. This one is using the minimum function, which we're gonna see later, but I'm using the field and I'm getting a double for the column amount. Now I can also have another minimum. I'm going to modify the first log message. And instead of using the field, I can get li, by the way, it is a row. So I can just specify this amount. Okay, I can rename this li to a row in order to be explicitly, okay, to identify that this is a row. I'm going to press, now if I'm going to just hit OK, you'll see that this one does not give any error. But if I run the file, so if I go to the output, I can see that the minimum is 100 in both of the cases. However, don't use this approach. Don't use the minimum in a conjunction with an object. Because what happens underneath is that the minimum does not have an overload of using objects. So if you're looking to the 12 overloads here, does not have any with object, but it converts the most approachable, the most closer to get a minimum, which happens to be a double, and it happens to this row to be a double. Okay, so this is just by chance it works. Don't use this approach. Now what you can use, it's the one with the convert. So if I can say convert to, I can say either to a double or to a single, really doesn't matter here, because the convert, it will actually figure out the data type itself and it will do the conversion. This one works and it's perfectly fine, but it is a bit slowly. Okay, so that's why I recommend to use the field with double, let the exceptions to pop up. Actually, you will figure out that you will make a lot of mistakes and you can start to play with these data types also. Great, and as a takeaway, try to use field as a default method to get a type, especially in this lambda function. I'm doing these videos in my spare time, and to be honest, I do my best to share my thoughts on the channel to help others as well. Giving a like to this video would indicate to YouTube that this is a great content so others can see it as well. Thanks for supporting me, and until the next time, see you soon. Bye.